the man, the myth, the legend, the reason everybody came here tonight, Dan Workman. Everybody stand up and give him a round of applause. Here's a guy who's going to change our life. Incredible.
Thanks, man. You're welcome. Can you guys hear me all right if I don't use the mic? Are you okay? I just said that. Okay. I'll end up tripping over it or something. I don't know. I'm going to turn this thing off. So anyway, nice thing when you're a heroin addict is that the bar is really low. So, you guys just aren't the expectation really high. But being a heroin addict also, you're kind of on the sidelines of life. I'm sitting here and I want to thank Jared so much for inviting me to be here and to do this and touch on some of the things that he talked about with stigma and with treatment and what we go through. And Carol, the stuff about perfectionism, a big part of my story was just sort of learning how to fail without deeming myself a failure. Chris, the motivational stuff, that being present in the moment, I don't know how often I sit and try to still escape. I'm still totally an addict. All day, every day. I'm an all or nothing. I've been trying to change it. I've been trying to learn moderation, trying to drink more water than Red Bull. This is an ongoing process. But I've found that I'm usually a lot more forgiving of other people than I am of myself. Can anybody relate to that? Do you find it easier to forgive other people than yourselves? For sure. And I think a lot of us who get into the realm of self-medicating with something, whether it's behavior, whether it's a substance, whatever it is that we're using to escape that shame or that punishment or whatever it is that we're experiencing inside, that's why I founded Quitters Prosper, because I felt like that was the one realm when it came to drugs, when it came to self-medicating, when it came to punishing yourself, that quitting that can lead people down a path of genuine prosperity. And in my case, I have to thank Jared because, I'm 35 years old. I'm still trying to learn how to adult. I decided to put one of those skillet sensation meals on the stove the other day, and then went upstairs, wrote another chapter, came down, my entire apartment smells like burnt Alfredo, and I'm still not quite crushing it in the adulting department. But I'm better, and I'm a lot better than I was a couple years ago. Just less than 2 years ago, I was up here by Lone Peak High School. I had just quit heroin. I'd just gone through withdrawals for the last time. I was homeless. I was sleeping in the dirt. I was working construction, and I was taking those little hotel soaps up to that little river that's behind Lone Peak, and bathing in that at night, scrubbing grout and stuff off. And it was the happiest I had been in years and years and years, because I was starting to reclaim my life. And now, all this time later, just this week, Monday and Tuesday, getting to go and speak to 700 of those students and do presentations with drug detectives and try and talk to high schoolers. With the high schoolers, I tell a lot of different stories. I kind of talk about what got me into this and going from the rebellion down into the ruin and then up into the redemption. And with this crowd, I feel like it's not as much of a cautionary tale as it is, how are we coming together? How are we doing the unity that Jared talked about with finding ourselves? And I hate to put him on the spot. For a second. Look at this specimen right here. This guy has put on 30 pounds since I met him. He's been tanning, he's bronzed, he's just, looks like he just got back from Cancun. I love this guy to death. He is the bane of my existence. He has been the biggest pain in my butt for such a long time. I've literally physically gone to look for him 3 different times. I've tried to lock him into a hotel room from which he escaped. I have, driven him all around, bought him Red Bulls, gotten yelled at, got some really great musical advice from him, by the way. I can't get over all the Tesseract stuff that he's been sending me and having listened to. But this is a great guy. He's not an evil person, but when I met him, if I just tell people, same thing, somebody that I could see boy, I've been there. I've been the guy that was putting the needle in his arm. I've been the guy who was smelly and skinny and gaunt, and there was no light left in my eyes, and there was no hope. And like Carol talked about, like that hopelessness, that sense that there's nothing left to live for, that escape that you're going through, that you're experiencing, becomes so preferable to life that when you do a hardcore drug like that, like heroin, I don't know if anybody else can relate, but it's like committing half of a suicide. Like your body's not a temple anymore. Your body is a cheap motel room. Like you just, you don't want to live. You don't necessarily want to die, but you certainly don't want to live. You don't want to be alone in your own thoughts. And then you have other people around you who just don't understand it. They're like, why can't you just stop? Just stop. Like, it's ridiculous what you're doing. I mean, I don't know how many times we talked about that, of saying, like, if you could beat the addiction out of somebody. Like, if that was really the way to handle it, because what I've been trying to do for the last 2 years, I've been going around and, giving people hugs and listening to their sob stories and all that. Like, if I could just beat the crap out of them and have them cure the addiction, just take you outside with this surgical 2x4 and bust it over your noggin, and you're cured. Like, no more, so that's enough on the spot, but this guy looks amazing. But one thing about, give a round of applause, guys. Guys in the back, sorry. Hey, I just want to let you know, too, if you're going to take off, Jared was kind enough when I was running low on gas money to buy enough books for everybody to have one, compliments of Violent Recovery. So there's some signed copies back there. Please help yourselves. There should be one for everybody. But that's, so thank you, Jared, for that. So anyway, getting sidetracked as I want to do sometimes, but what I started to see with reclaiming my own life a little bit, there's this Tibetan proverb that I used in the book, and it says, "Lo, when he helped the man scale the mountain, he climbed it himself." And the premise of that was that if you are even just have a sliver more hope than the person that you're talking to, you have something to offer. Because even if they're leaning on you, you're taking the same steps together. You're progressing together. And so the things that happened with Dane and his family, like, I'm lucky. I'm the lucky one that got to be part of their lives. They got to watch this transformation because he charges my batters in a huge way. And the capacity that he has for going out and now being, an instrument of hope for other people is insurmountable. I've told him this multiple times. He's on his way right now. I'm like, give it a year, man. You'll be so much better at this than I am. It's absurd. But that moment that I was there, bathing in that river and sleeping in the dirt, the reason that I was so happy was because I had finally gotten off the sidelines of my life. And I had finally stopped trying to live this sort of secondary existence to myself. I mean, Tim gave me the suggestion to go watch A Quiet Place. How many people have watched A Quiet Place? Have you got to see it in the theaters? Okay, if you haven't, go see it. But, it's a scary movie, a lot of tension, and it's dark in the theater, right? Like, you're in it, you feel it, everything. Now, if you were to watch that or watch another scary movie in the middle of the day, on your phone, just hearing it through those speakers, you're still watching the same movie, right? Do you feel like it has the same punch? No. You're not immersed in it. You don't get to be right there in the moment feeling it. And when you start numbing yourself with some kind of compulsive behavior, or drug, substance, or gambling, food, whatever it is, you're so focused on that escape that it's like taking that backseat, like you're watching your life on that little tiny screen. You're still seeing what's going on, you're still watching it go by, but you're not immersed in it. You're totally wrapped up in the distraction. And as I got into heroin, you guys all have a copy of the book, you can read the whole story if you want, but I grew up here in Utah, went on a mission. I titled it Black Tar Mormon because I grew up like most of us, LDS. But in my mind, that rod of iron idea, for me, it was like a tightrope. Carol talked about perfectionism. Like, if I made one mistake, I screwed up one thing, then I was worthless. I was a lost cause, I was going to hell, whatever else. Drink a beer, going to hell. your stepmom catches you with your Victoria's Secret under the mattress. Like, these were my scenarios of life, and then to just find the worthiness that I needed. And I was somebody that had no juvenile record. I had a pretty good heart, I felt like. I tried to be very generous with my friends and my family, but there was this noise just brewing inside my head because I always had to have something else to help identify myself. There always had to be this like asterisk, this label next to Dan, because Dan was never enough. It was Dan the drummer, or then Dan the missionary, or Dan the writer. And then after I got home off my mission, I was Dan the husband, Dan the father, Dan the stockbroker. And by 25, I owned 3 houses, I got 2 cars, I've been working as a stockbroker for a year, I'm running my own executive team. And yet, all these things that should make me happy, all these successes or these material possessions or things like that, like, for some reason there's still this just sound in my brain. It's like forks in a blender. I don't know how many people have gone through an addiction with something, but if you've ever had that, if you've ever had that experience where you're just uncomfortable in your own company, you don't want to be in your own head. I mean, it's just the most miserable place to be. Inevitably, for most of us, unless we start to adopt healthy coping mechanisms, we're going to numb ourselves instead. So whether it's a behavior, whether it's a substance, whether it's a relationship, because boy, I don't know how many women I've been addicted to in my life, but that's absolutely something that goes along with it. You know, I mean, that's completely on the realm of trying to validate yourself with something else. And finally, it just got to be too much, and I just severed all ties with the LDS church. And it wasn't even a church thing at that point. It was just, if I didn't feel like with this all or nothing mentality that I could get up and be 100% like, I know this is this, then I had to step away completely. But then there was no reason to not drink or party or do any of that kind of stuff. And it turned into self-medicating the very first time I blacked out from drinking, because like, well, this is a lot easier than trying to get myself to sleep. It's a lot easier than meditation, like just black out. And before long, I found myself divorced, bankrupt. Now my daughter's being put to bed by another guy 150 miles away. And I'm just completely miserable. And I meet the girl who's hotter than my ex-wife, so just rub that in her face, you know? She's more fun, she's more chaotic. She's the girl I can take into the bar and everybody's like, well, how did you get her? So I don't have to be Dan anymore, I can just be her arm candy, you know? I told myself that. But she made me feel great about myself. When I didn't feel great about myself, she told me that she loved me even when I didn't love myself, so it was a really easy exchange. Even though on her end, she just wanted somebody that would party with her and pay the bill. So now we start getting into Xanax, GHB, cocaine, Molly, you know, whatever you name it. And as the intensity of the drugs increased, so did the escape. And you know, another analogy that I like to use, not like the little movie on your phone screen, but it's like walking across a rocky beach in, you know, Oregon or Maine or something. It's all just rocks and shells, broken pieces of glass. And if you've been walking barefoot on that beach for your entire life, like your feet are gonna be pretty tough, right? But if you've been wearing these huge, like Napoleon Dynamite moon boots, cruising along the beach and somebody takes those away, that's horrific. Like every step hurts, every movement hurts. And that's how it is with these drugs. Like you start to get that numbing sensation, you start to get used to that, your body becomes accustomed to it, the physical dependency sets in. And then, all of a sudden, months later, I found myself at a new all-time low. Hadn't slept in 4 days, just miserable, hungover, started to turn yellow at that point from the booze. And we had gotten into a big fight. She said, come to my hotel room. And there she was, sitting on the bed, black lingerie, bag of needles on the bed next to her, a spoon in one hand, a lighter in the other. She said, do you want to try some? I should warn you, there's a 50-50 chance you won't wake up. And just like I talked about that suicide, when I stuck my arm out, it was like, you know what, I'll take those odds. I don't really care at this point. Because either way would be preferable to what I'm feeling right now. So within 3 heartbeats, now all of a sudden I've got something that shuts my brain down completely. Like nothing has ever turned things off that well. And anybody who's gotten to that point, anybody that you see right now, Jared was talking about the stigma. If you're walking down the street, you see somebody who's homeless, or they're ratty, or they're dirty. I mean, believe me, before I had ever tried any of this stuff before, I saw somebody like that, I thought the exact same thing, those exact same stigma things, and just this filthy junkie. Why can't they get their act together? But when you live that, you've been in that realm, and that cycle just continues, it's why it's so important for us to be our own instruments of hope to those people. Because you have no idea what it can mean to this person who is telling themselves all these hateful things. If you walk up to them one day and say, hey, I don't know, like maybe I've never lived in your shoes, I don't know what's going on, but I can tell you that you're still worth it. Things can get better. Recovery is totally possible. Like just those few little things. I mean, the empathy, the hope, the compassion, those things are all free. We can sit, we can talk about, like, I love the ideas of unity between treatment centers. I wish that insurance companies didn't pay treatment centers until somebody had been clean for a year. I wish that would be their incentive. I wish it wasn't a $37 billion a year industry. And then I'm not, constantly on conference calls with people who are referring to patients as Cash or Blue Cross or Aetna. Like they're not even calling them by name, they're just an insurance card or a $35,000 payout. And I'm thinking, I don't want anything to do with you guys. Like, I'd be sick. If I found out that you were saying that about one of my kids, I'd be absolutely livid. But that's the hand that we've been dealt right now. That's what we're living in right now. And 100 years from now, I hope that they look back on how we handled this opiate epidemic, and they just laugh about it. Like I was in Ohio, and I was meeting with this Erie County Sheriff's Department, and they had one of those like old leather-bound ledgers, and they were opening up and showing us arrests from 100 years ago. And on there was one that said she was 7 years old, she was put into jail for 2 days, a 7-year-old girl, guess what the crime was listed? Epilepsy. That was the crime. 7-year-old girl in jail for 2 days for epilepsy, but then that was normal. So now as we try to jail people who are going through addiction, or we try to like beat things, help me out. I hope that something comes around. I wish that, today, right now in Utah, like we could just end this opiate epidemic for the most part. But it would have to be something where we take every resource and everybody pulls together, and I know it's a pipe dream, but think about a buddy system of recovery. Dane, how many drug-using friends did you have? I know I had probably 15 quote-unquote friends that I used drugs with.
A lot, yeah. Heroin less, but everywhere.
You run into those groups and you start to gravitate towards those people, and I think, well, what would happen if we just said, hey, today, right now, anybody who wants it, here's the address, here's the phone number, you can get free treatment, but you got to bring somebody with you. Bring one of your buddies with you. Grab one of your drug buddies. We know you guys have talked at one point and said, oh, I'm fed up with this, I hate it. Even if they only think logically 10 minutes out of the day, if they were to act in that moment, bring in, and then, instead of treating these people as less than, we gear up and we deputize them. Like, hey, Dane, handling the radio with you. Now you're the one who does it. I'm standing up here without any credentials, without any letters behind my name, nothing. And I feel like the only reason that I even get asked to go and do these things is just because I decided one moment in my life that I hated this drug. I hated everything that had taken from me. We're 3.5 years down the road from that first taste, and I just loathe it. I've picked up felonies. I've got a record. I don't recognize myself in the mirror anymore. I've lied. I've stolen from my dad. I've broken his truck window. I have manipulated everybody, and I've used every justification method there is to just make sense of why I'm burning all these bridges. And yet that day rolls around, and I'm just like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Like, I hate this. I hate this drug. So So I called my dad and I uttered those 3 magic words, I need help. And my daughter's birthday was coming up, just over 30 years away. And I decided in that moment, okay, when her birthday gets here, I'm going to start working, earn enough money to buy her a birthday present with my own money, with my own sweat, and I'm going to be clean and clear-eyed. So again, talk about setting the bar. Okay, Dad, don't be high on heroin and buy your kid a birthday present. Father of the year, right? President. But for me, in that moment, that was like the first step up Mount Everest. Because this was not going to be fun. It was not going to be easy. I had tried everything I could. Ever since I felt that numbing behavior before, ever since I put on those Napoleon Dynamite boots, all that stuff, it was just constantly like, keep the pain at bay, keep reality at bay, do everything I can to plug holes in this dam, because it's constantly cracking. It's a constant process to maintain your fix or your high. You're not even high at that point when you're that bad. You're just trying to stay well. You're just trying to function to some degree. But in this moment, I don't know, something clicked. I found some kind of fight. And I just said, you know what? This is my final farewell to these drugs. I want to feel it. I'm going to just Tyler Durden in this moment. Hit me as hard as you can. Life, bring it. I'm tired of being on the sidelines. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to escape reality. I want the good and the bad and the sadness and the rejection and the, all of the things that come along with it. But I want to be in and I want to feel every bit of this because I've tried so long to not feel. So, I don't know, a lot of movie references, but Shawshank Redemption, right? Get busy living, get busy dying. That was it at this moment. I was like, I had tried to die. I had tried all these other things. One night took 3 full bottles of pills and wrote sorry, cremated the mess on a napkin. That's how much I hated my life. That's how much I was convinced everybody was better off without me. And even then, I wake up in the hospital with this doctor saying, I have no medical reason for why you're still breathing. You took 90 Xanax bars, you took 30 Percocets, you took 30 Ambien, you drank half a gallon of whiskey. That should have killed a riot. There's no reason you should be here. So if you don't believe in God, you should start. There's something you're supposed to do with your life. Figure it out and go do it. So I've made that call. I need help, Dad. And he could have ignored me. He could have said, no, you broke in my truck that one time. Screw you. Deal with it yourself. He could have tough loved me, But I think he could hear it. I think he could tell in that moment it wasn't me wanting to pay my cell phone bill or see if I could hustle another $60 out of him. It was, I need help. I'm in a bad way. And getting honest and coming out with all that was just such a huge relief. Even though I knew I had this just horrific withdrawal coming my way. We didn't have the money. We didn't have the insurance. I've put hundreds of people into rehab. I've never spent a night in one myself. I've never been to a detox. He just said, meet me at this motel and sweat it out. So I showed up there. He had to practically carry me into this extended stay motel. Drops me on the bed. I stink. I'm dirty. I look like the regular junkie who at that point was just covered in puncture wounds, bathing, flossing, paying your child support. Like, these things have all gone in the background. None of that stuff matters. You're going to be dead tomorrow anyways. But in that moment, he just said, I'll be here to check on you. You can do this. I love you. I believe in you. Go for it. And I couldn't sleep. You can't sleep when you're going through heroin withdrawals. It's just horrific. But I sat there and I did all the things that I had been told before. Like the logic, if it kicks back in even for a second, like the common sense elements of deleting all those drug-using friends, deleting those contacts, blocking numbers. My dealer's number, I couldn't unmemorize that, so I typed random numbers into a calculator for 6 hours straight while I thought about my dealer's number. Just to confuse myself so much that there's no way I could call him if I wanted to. In that moment of weakness, like I'm trying to hedge my bets, I'm putting safety nets everywhere I can because I know there's a weaker version inside myself who will cave if he's given too many options. So I'm trying to eliminate those one at a time. And then I start plastering the walls with legal pads of what I want my life to look like. Like if I stop telling myself that I deserve this misery and deserve this pain and deserve this desperation, like if I just gave myself a little bit of hope, just a glimmer, like a hint that maybe I do deserve good things. Maybe there is something down the road. Like maybe I could still go take my daughters on a trip somewhere or buy her that birthday present or find my way back into my family and not feel like I'm just a shame and embarrassment and a disappointment to everybody. So 5 days of this and all the physical stuff that's going on with it. Until finally I get to the point where I've got enough energy to go to Walmart, use the little $10 Walmart card that they gave me to get some more Gatorade ammonia. And as I'm coming back, driving this beat up Honda Accord, I hit a pothole and all these papers and wrappers on my front seat get jostled. And there's a loaded syringe sitting there, like in the papers. Like, this is relief. I mean, I've literally watched the sun go down and come back up for 5 days. And there's 80 units of cocaine and heroin right there. Like, this is my jam. This is my favorite thing. And remember me being the king of justification? Well, I ran. It's the fastest I'd moved during those 5 days. Get up those stairs, throw the latch, pull the blinds, sit down on the toilet seat, tie my arm off, and I've just got it, like, ready to go. Because who could say no to this? I am just a junkie. But then I catch a glimmer of myself in the mirror, and I think, even if my dad never finds out, or my kids never find out, or my friends never find out, like, even if I could successfully hide this from everybody, and it's just 5 days, and I'll just start the process over, like, I'll be able to get some sleep, and, you know, mentally reset a little bit, and I'll just try again. But this glimpse that I catch of myself in the mirror, and these papers that are plastered all over the walls, and these ideas of what I would do with everything, with the money, if I could save $60 a day instead of spending it on drugs, like, what could I do? All the possibilities, all the hope that's just surrounding me. It matters. And if there's people in here who have gone through some kind of addiction, I know you can probably relate to this, because even if it's just the smallest voice, like, there's this moment, this hesitation moment, where even for just like a brief second you don't want to do what you're about to do. Even if your body is screaming at you to do it, there's just one little part that hesitates. And in my case, like, I just acted in that moment. I stood up into the toilet seat, I pulled out the plunger, I broke it, I flushed a shot, and I never touched it again. But maybe this is our last movie reference, but Back to the Future. George McFly, right? He's getting beat up by Biff at the end. She's in the car, "You're gonna break his arm, Biff," you know, just screaming at him, right? You guys remember what he does? Clenches his fist, spins around, knocks him out, and then in that one moment, he's just like that holy crap, look what I just did moment. I have no other way to describe it, but like, wow, maybe I've got more in me. Maybe I have the capacity to surprise myself. Like, maybe there's some untapped potential in me. Maybe this demon that has just been like beating me down, like, maybe if I stood up and, you know, pulled my shoulders back, got some fire in my eyes, I'd find out that I was actually bigger than him, stronger than him. Like, what if I could just chase this feeling? What if instead of trying to like have a brain overhaul or a transplant or whatever else, or trying to be a different person or always living in some other reality, what if I just said, okay, today, yep, I'm an addict. That makes me determined, that makes me stubborn, that makes me relentless, persistent. If I want something, I'm going to get it. But what if I chase that feeling of, can I surprise myself? Like, what if I had the guts to come out with the book and actually put something out there? What if I had the guts to get up in front of a crowd and try this? Like, what if I could use this story and try and be my own like PR rep and maybe put a positive spin on it, like find a way to use that to take somebody else out of that misery or help them avoid it in the first place. So that's when I read the construction number on the truck the next morning. The guy was remodeling his Best Western right down here, so if you guys ever go to one of those Best Westerns and shower in one of their, you know, little triangular tile shelves and those porcelain tubs, I carried every single one of those porcelain tubs into that place. $17 an hour, covered in grout, coming up to Lone Peak to put a foam pad down and sleep on that little sandbank, bathe in the river, and just started to love life. Like, I was bursting at the seams. I was just like, oh my goodness, like, what did I just do? Like, I just wrenched my life back from the most hateful and insidious drug that's out there, and what else could I do? And day 30, I pull up to my ex-wife's house with a pink mountain bike in the back of my car. She She runs in, screaming, throws her arms around me. It was the summit of Everest, you guys. It was like, wow. Like again, I just surprised myself. Like, what else could I do with this? And it was also Father's Day. And that's when my older daughter grabbed me on the face and kissed me on the cheek, and she looks me dead in the eyes and she goes, "Dad, I can see you in there again." And I was just hooked, guys. Better than any drug, anything I've ever snorted, smoked, shot, anything like that. Just to find that I still had the capacity to be a father, that I still had some goodness in me, I still had some kind of redemption in me, I still had potential in me. And then the new addiction that piled on top of that was just like, whether I tried to like write on Facebook, or somebody called me, or I just like went and bought a couple dollar burgers and sat down with somebody in the gutter, up at the block before they shut down, Operation Hero Ground. Sitting there, it wasn't a trigger for me. I bought, tens of thousands of dollars worth of drugs out there probably. But now for some reason when I sat down and like talked to that person, it didn't matter. It wasn't relevant like what they thought about what I had to say, or if they laughed at me, or if they rolled their eyes at me. It was just try to leave somebody better than I found them. Because that was in my control, and that made me feel a little bit better about the guy that I saw in the mirror. Made me feel like a little bit less of a hot mess than yesterday. So every day is find 3 people, leave them better than I found them. And I just celebrated 700 days. So that brings us to now, Along the way, like, so it's, thank you guys. And it is, it's a constant struggle. Like, it's not, I'm one of the lucky few that I just don't crave that stuff anymore. Like right now, I'm a little bit more proud of myself because I just celebrated 4 months off of nicotine. Like I finally gave up the cigarettes. Like that wasn't a hard one. It was, really I was struggling with. But again, I just burned the skillet sensation. I have to Febreze my entire house. My daughters still laugh at me because I let them stay up too late, and they still call me a pushover. And but life gradually comes back, and it's not a tight wire. Recovery, it's not a political party, it's not a religion, and just like this idea that I had before that I had to maintain perfection. There's still days that we struggle, we feel down, we feel depressed. There's still days that I am supposed to be writing a chapter, and then I look back and realize I just binge watched an entire season of Rick and Morty, like I was not productive with my time. And it's far from perfection, but to have these kinds of opportunities to be able to get up and say something that maybe somebody needed to hear, or just share a story that maybe it prevents somebody else from ever going down that path, or reminds somebody that they have the capacity inside them to make really big waves. Because I know Dane can attest, when we're heroin addicts, we try to stop making waves. We almost want to live as small as we can because we just leave wreckage. You try, you do everything you can, you just pray and wish, and you think man, if I could just wake up today and be a geo instead of a bulldozer, it would be so great. Because then I wouldn't do so much damage. At least my footprint, your carbon, whatever, my damage footprint would be so much smaller if I could just be something else, if I could just magically transform into something else. But then you accept exactly who you are today. And you're like, okay, I'm the bulldozer, cool. But I'm behind the wheel. So if there's this big flash flood and the banks are eroding and, people are getting washed away and houses are getting washed away and there's wreckage like we're seeing right now with this opiate epidemic. I don't know if you guys know the numbers. 9/11, how many deaths? 3,000? During the entire Vietnam War, 58,000 deaths for American soldiers. Do you know how many people have died of a preventable drug overdose just since January 1st, 2018? Just this year. You guys want to know how many people have died in the United States? 20. Wow. 20,000. And we're not bad people. We're not evil people. We're not morally bankrupt. We're bulldozers. And yeah, we can leave a lot of wreckage, but when that flash flood is happening and the banks are eroding and sandbags have to be filled, nobody is crying out for a geo. They want a bulldozer. They just want you to be behind the wheel. They want you to aim everything you've got at something good. So that's what I'm going to try and do today, and I hope that for you guys. So I'm going to call it. Thanks. Question? Yeah, we have a water reference. Did we have that? Do you have any questions?
I love the bulldozer analogy. When you were talking about bringing one of your friends, I'm sitting here with two of my friends, with George and Dane, and I watched their heads nod. Man, you guys went to Aqua together, you came here together, and I know in your minds you thought, I would have loved to bring a friend with me on this, right? As a dad, as parents, we're bulldozers too. We've been through something, and we know. And we know the stigma's crap, and we know there's no rubric, there's no math on this. It happens to anybody and everybody. So when we do see those guys that 5 months ago, my son looked like that, we need to, anything, even just buying a meal and whatnot, but we also need to help the parents and everyone else in the community understand that just education about this, knowing really more about what addiction is, how the brain works, why they're in these whirlpools of destruction. And like you said, ultimately it's the one decision, because they're not going to make the decision not to use, but they can make the one decision that I need to get help. And that's only my experience with my son. But that is, we need to be there. And we're bulldozers too. We need to go move earth and move people, because
You absolutely
there's a
are.
lot of people that don't know. 6 months ago, we didn't know what the hell we were doing.
Yeah.
And it showed in where Dane was. We weren't helping at all.
And
You know?
but I mean, it's like Caroline, how many times you gave me a hug or you wrote me something nice and you tried to tout me up as this person who did something, and it was such a group effort. And I was just in the position, fortunately or unfortunately, because of my experiences, that I could meet Dane on his level and just be like, hey, I've been there, I know what you're feeling, I know what you're going through, I get this right here. And then it was just a simple invitation. Like, you know where this life is going to lead you. Your parents have helped set up something else. You know, let's try it. Are you willing to try it? Come look at it. Let's just go look. Come look. And it's whether people are inviting somebody to meetings, or they have the option for rehab, or they're going to a workout recovery program, or like a work program, like Building Beginnings, or they're going to do, you know, addicts to athletes, or they're going to church, or they're going, I mean, whatever it is, like if it's something that's worked for you, it doesn't mean it's the one way to do it. I mean, the nice thing about recovery is there are more ways out of that hell than there are into it. Realistically, like there are options out there. There's a lot of ways to do this, but we just keep encouraging somebody, like, you tried something that didn't fit you, let's go try something else. Keep trying, don't give up. And you guys were there, and Jared was there, and it was this huge group effort, because if I stood up here and tried to take credit for something that Dane did for himself, then I have to take responsibility for all those kids that I've seen in caskets over the last 2 years, because there's been a lot of those too. Good guys. You know, a lot of kids left fatherless, a lot of wives widowed, a lot of screaming moms, and it's been horrific to watch. But as you're trying to help somebody through something like this, whatever it is, the behavior, anything, I constantly try to remind you guys, and I tell everybody else, like, we do all this, we try to open as many doors as we can for somebody who's going through this, but not with an expectation. Like, not this, like, boy, I will sure feel good about myself if Dane does this. It's like, man, look at Dane now compared to when I met him. Like, how blessed, how lucky am I that I got to watch that happen? Like, how many people get a front row seat to watch something like that? Like, that's something that was so new and exciting. But then you take the guys who are in this boat, and instead of letting them fall back into that mindset of like, I'm going to be small, or I'm going to beat myself up, or I'm going to do this, it's like, go out and try this now. Here's my invitation. Like, go find somebody, do it. You think I got some credentials or some special technique that you don't have? No, it's BS. You got everything and more in you to go and just make it happen. Get in front of a classroom, like go, whatever. Put a milk crate in the street corner and, yell at people on their way past. Give people free hugs. Like, I don't care, like whatever you gotta do, but go out and do something that then charges your batteries. Because I saw one sign in an airport. I was flying back from speaking somewhere, and there was somebody that had a sign that was like, welcome home from rehab, hopefully it sticks this time. And I restrained myself, like I didn't punch him in the throat. I wanted to. Desperately, because I don't care who you are or what you've done in your life, nobody wants to be treated like a ticking time bomb. Dane's had some ups and downs. I've had some ups and downs. Like, I tried and failed countless times. That was far from the first time I'd gone through withdrawals, but the beautiful thing about recovery is you get it right once, and then you start to reap the rewards of what you're experiencing and reclaiming your life. And I made Dane a poster that has like an iceberg, and it shows like the base, and I put like prepare for greatness, brother.
Greatness awaits.
Yeah, greatness awaits. Because my experience was, instead of living my entire life like in this heroin addict bubble, I mean, I talk about it, it feels like all day, every day now, but I don't wake up in the morning and think about heroin. It's kind of old news. Like, that was a chapter in my story, but, like, maybe I can tackle refined sugar now. I don't know, maybe I can tackle gluten or something like that. Like, why would I ever want to go back to the heroin nightmare? Like, did that, got nicotine, maybe I can go a week without hitting the snooze button. Like, that would be really exciting, like that would make me feel like, find a workout routine that I can actually stick to instead of going like 3.5 hours at a time, 4 times a month, It doesn't work that way. But I just want to be able to go to the gym and then have a six-pack when I walk out of there because I'm an addict and I love instant gratification. So that's how we roll, right? So I end up with clumps of powdered laundry detergent like in all my clothes when I pull them out because I still have this like more is better mentality. So I'm just like, put the whole box in there. This'll make them cleaner. And wear the jeans twice in a row. So anyway, all right, derailed a little bit. Any other questions?
Mine's more of a compliment. I just think you're a big gun, and my son. And like you said, we're bulldozers. We're going to do anything, move heaven and earth to save our kid. But I always say for Zapster that he was probably put behind enemy lines for a little while so that he could learn tactics of the enemy. And then he could come out and be the big gun and go and get the others. And as a community, we have to look at it as, like you said, a war. It's a war. And if we all stick together, I had no idea. I've never smoked a cigarette. I had no idea what I was doing with this boy. And my other 3 boys didn't have these issues, so I was walking this line with this boy. And I think, but what I was given was the ability to learn things, understand things. I've gone through my own issues, my own trials, and my own weaknesses. So they're not the same, but we all have them. We all have human experiences. But when you are a big gun and you go behind enemy lines and you learn the tactic of the enemy, when you come out, you can take 5 guys with you and bring them back into recovery. And so I can see that about you, and I know that about my son. These men, I've got to know these men in these houses, and this guy right here, like, Mary, like, honestly, really, Chris is the one. And they're big guns, and it's because you go through this. And when you go through it, you become mighty. When you, like you said, you don't crave it anymore. You become mighty when you just kind of have been able to overcome it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you saying that. And it's something like I often get calls from people that have either like turned to their bishop or their stake president or something like that, and I still love and admire everything in my family and the culture and the faith and everything. And it's the crazy thing about it now is that I've gone through the MTC. I've grown up hearing these stories my entire life, but I can't even talk about the prodigal son now without getting teared up because it's never felt the way that it does right now. Or the idea of loving people who are unpopular to love. Because we don't have a lot of lepers walking around right now, but when you hear people screaming hatred and vitriol against addicts and junkies and just let them die. If there's a group right now, not to get too churchy on you, but Jesus rolled up in a beat up Toyota pickup truck with 2x4s in the back, who would he be hanging out with? We're modern day lepers right now. Like, that's what's going on. And so I felt like in learning that, trying to learn that about myself, that you maintain your perspective and and the good that it does for you to find somebody out there worse and just give them something, because you have no idea how it will apply. There's a lady, Taryn Aiken, she works for the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. She was a meth addict for years. Just got married. I just ran into her at the airport like last week. And just the sweetest lady. She's just fun. She's vulgar. She's wonderful. But she went through a time of being so severely suicidal and, you know, smoking meth and being the person that everybody would just discard as a worthless, lost soul or whatever. But when these people find their way back, you know, I don't know that there really is such a thing as big guns. I think you find somebody and you just give them like just that possibility. You plant that little seed of saying like, what if there is something really good left in you? Like what if you're breathing today, then there's hope. Like you can turn your life around. I've seen somebody do it, you know, and then it doesn't have to be these statistics and these most people relapse or waiting for the other shoe to drop or whatever. We just like see somebody when as down as he was, I saw nothing like a powder keg of potential. Like just light that dude's fuse and turn him loose. See what happens. So, I mean, I appreciate you guys letting me be here, but standing up on stage doesn't separate us. Like there's not this big chasm between, you know, I just went out and just started trying a whole bunch of stuff, you know, and some of it worked and some of it didn't, but the ability to go out and work with people, I'll tell you what, if you don't feel great about yourself today, you kind of lose yourself in some realm of service or just doing something for somebody just for the sake of being good because you know that you're going to feel better about yourself when you look in the mirror. I mean, I don't know. I basically just came up with a much wordier way to describe like Christ-like love, you know. I mean, I like these cliches, they exist for a reason, but once you implement it, you kind of get it, and then it's a great thing to have done. So, anything else? You guys just want to grab some books before we head out, or and do the wrap? Any other questions?
All right, let's give him a thank.
No.